Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. And I am Troy Snyder. I am the certified benefit counselor here at the Ulster County Career Center, and I'm here to present a presentation to you today, specifically the Social Security Disability Programs, work incentives, and resources available to people with disabilities. Okay, this is an overview. So my first question to many of you out there, it is important to know before we begin, what program are you in receipt of? Meaning that the majority of the individuals that I work with over my career are either in receipt of Social Security disability insurance or supplemental security income, okay? So it is important as you go along in this presentation that you know from the beginning what program you belong to, because this presentation does in fact focus on the area of employment, earned income, and unearned income. And I'm going to move along somewhat quickly, but don't panic. The information is available to you. And again, if you have any questions, my contact information is available to you. So please don't hesitate to give me a call and we can discuss your goals and how to achieve those goals. Okay, so I'm going to begin. And again, welcome and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend with me today. And here we go. Okay, very much what you'll see on the screen before you is a separation of the two programs. So like I said earlier, it's important to know which program you belong to, okay? Because Social Security does the same thing, all right? Very good, all right? And again, don't panic. I'm going to move along pretty good. But again, my colleague is having fun. This is my first presentation, so I think we're not doing too bad so far. Please note that the Social Security disability insurance has classifications, but the work incentives do apply to each of these classifications, just as if you were an individual who was in receipt of their disability insurance as a result of your work record. And then, as you notice, the difference between the two, SSI is just that. It is a supplemental means tested federal welfare program, which means if you don't need it, you don't receive it, okay? So we're going to continue. Again, notice the separation between the two programs. That's very important to remember. And notice that this presentation was designed over my career as a result of many of the individuals I've helped work with in the past and their questions. So again, I'll use the term from time to time. This is an overview, okay? And basic understanding of the two programs is that Social Security disability insurance is just that. It is an insurance program and it's based on the amount of income someone has paid into the Social Security system via FICA. SSI again, need-based. If you don't need it, you don't get it. And if you notice the slide, I've indicated again the amount of income needed to qualify for what Social Security term quarters of coverage, so 4 quarters of credit. Again, I'm not going to go into the particulars of that because I am going to focus more on how does earned or unearned income affect my Social Security disability benefits or my SSI. And over my career, I'm going to keep it simple. So we're going to start with the very premise that I've learned from working with individuals in receipt of these benefits. There are two ways an individual loses his or her benefits. The first way is you medically improve or you make too much money. Many people, for the most part, don't understand what it entails when someone applies for a Social Security disability. Social Security Administration does not look at the disability at first. It looks at an individual's ability to earn a living. That's correct, to earn money. Social Security uses the term substantial gainful activity, and I'll explain more to you in the presentation as I move along. So please keep that in mind. Social Security looks at an individual's ability to earn an income, SGA, and then they'll look at the disability, okay? And as I said earlier, one of the methods, if you medically improve. So that means if my disability was not as severe as when I applied for benefits, there is a possibility that you will lose your cash benefits. Okay, and I'll explain a little bit more as we go along in that. So it's very important to have a good relationship with your doctors. And because as someone returns to work and starts making income, Social Security, again, looks at SGA, your ability to earn income. And that will at some point have an effect on your SSDI and your SSI. Okay, very good. Okay, again, Social Security disability, notice I keep it separate. Again, classifications for SSDI and SSI, okay, it pertains to the individual itself, SSI. SSD, again, different classifications on how an individual may be in receipt of Social Security disability. So it is challenging. An individual, for the most part, may be in receipt of SSDI as a result of someone else having enough quarters of coverage. SSI, not so much so, and it pertains to the individual, him or herself, and it is a need-based program. Okay, waiting periods, again, I'm not going to spend much time on that. That's pretty straightforward. I'll let you take a read at that at your leisure. Okay, very self-explanatory. So I tried to keep it very simple. Again, this is based on the feedback I received from other individuals I've worked with in the past. Okay, and I'm going to stop here briefly because in my career, one of the biggest challenges, and I'll discuss that with you if I ever have the privilege of meeting you in person, is the Workmen's Compensation Program in the state of New York. It is one of the few programs in this state that does in fact have impact on your Social Security disability insurance. And please remember that the SSI income, again, if you don't need it, you don't get it, and there's a number of variables that do affect the amount that you could be receiving each and every month. Okay, very good. Thank you, thank you. Okay, retro payments, again, very self-explanatory. Okay, I'm going to keep this simple. I try to keep it very simple, so try not to overthink this. Always go back to what program am I in receipt of, and two ways people lose their cash benefits. You either medically improve or you make too much money, okay? I often have, whenever I'm talking to anybody and they are confused as to what programs they are in receipt of, simply put, if you receive your cash benefits on the first of every month, you are in fact a receipt of SSI, supplemental security income, okay? So that's very simple. See, I'm already making you a benefit counselor. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about resources now, because that's another factor that whenever I'm working with anybody, I have a checklist in my mind, and sometimes on paper, on what does in fact affect your benefits that you are receiving. So when I'm going down my checklist, one of those variables are in fact resource limits. There are no resource limits for individuals in receipt of Social Security disability insurance. However, one of the challenges that we face when working together is there are resource limits for supplemental security income. And we'll talk a little bit about that again when I do in fact meet you, or again, you have my contact information. So please feel free to call me if you have any questions, or perhaps you're working with another benefit counselor, and that's fine, and I encourage that. Give him or her a call as well, okay? When are the checks paid? As I said, I keep it very simple. Remember, SSI recipients, always the first of every month. All right, and no, there's not going to be a test following this presentation, so breathe. Okay, health insurance benefits are something else I discuss whenever I'm working with anybody, because it's important to remember that one of the challenges and one of the many questions I have, and one of the disinformation that sometimes you see circulating or hearing out there, is that if I go to work, there's a possibility that I can lose my health insurance. And yes, that is a possibility, but we will plan and we prepare for that, and we're going to discuss that, okay? But as Social Security disability insurance, the health insurance, there is Medicare, okay? And that usually, for the most part, there is a brief window of 24 months before that is in effect. And during that time period, during that waiting period, I should say, is that many of you may have already been in receipt of Medicaid. So that's your health insurance until such time that that 24-month waiting period elapses, and then you will be in receipt of Medicare. Okay, majority, if not all the individuals that I've worked with in my career, supplemental security income, again, SSI, is Medicaid. And even if you're in receipt of $1 of SSI benefits in the state of New York, you are in receipt of Medicaid. And we'll talk about what happens when an individual on SSI makes money and they're concerned about the impacts of that money. There's such a thing as called 1619B that protects your Medicaid as a result of work. So again, you're protected and your Medicaid stays with you. Okay, we also talk a little bit about, I use it quite a bit in my career, under the Social Security Disability Insurance, there's a little known program known as the Medicaid buy-in for working people with disability, and that's a great program. So again, as you go to work, that's available for you too. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more, and I believe I do have a link in the presentation where you can go to gather information for that as well. Okay, now ladies and gentlemen, this slide, specifically slide 11, is very much targeted toward those individuals who are in fact of SSDI. And as I mentioned earlier, always remember, go back to your basics. If I go to work, what are the effects of earnings on my SSDI? That slide in front of you, slide 11, is the heart of what I do whenever I'm working with anybody who is in receipt of disability insurance. Okay, it is a process. When an individual goes to work on SSDI, ladies and gentlemen, again, know your programs. This is for SSDI only, not SSI. Remember, if you don't need your SSI, you don't receive it. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But back to SSDI. A beneficiary in receipt of SSDI is permitted to have 9 trial work months. When an individual goes to work, based on gross earnings for the month, if he or she earns 910 gross a month, they activate a trial work month. These trial work months do not have to be in a row, and they have to occur within a block of 5 years. Sometimes you also may hear the term rolling period of 5 years, okay? But regardless, that is where the challenge comes in. And for the most part, Congress determines how much an individual on SSDI is permitted to make. It usually happens annually. And for 2020, the gross amount of $910 a month activates a trial work month. So it's very important that you report all changes to Social Security, specifically when you go to work. Please call Social Security or provide a letter to the Social Security Administration indicating that you are in fact working. And at that particular point, every month you have a responsibility to report your earnings to the Social Security Administration. And we are in the month of May. So let's say you went to work for the month of May, April, January, February, March, April, May, June, forgive me, June, between the 1st and the 10th of June, you are required to report your earnings to the Social Security Administration. Okay, so I definitely recommend that you do that. You do that by making copies of your earning statements. Again, copies, please don't send the originals. You write your Social Security number on the copies. That's how the Social Security Agency identifies you, and they will record the information. Okay, so again, the biggest challenges whenever I'm working with anybody is the first step, report the changes to Social Security. In addition, you may also want to report changes to if you are in receipt of any other supports, meaning Ulster County DSS, food stamps, Medicaid. If you are receiving any additional supports from, let's say, RUBCO regarding maybe housing. Okay, so if you're being subsidized, again, all those supportive agencies that are helping you, it's important when we are planning. Before you even think about resume writing, I prefer that I sit down to counsel somebody on the effects of the earned income when they return to work on these programs that provide you with the supports. Again, back to this timeline. Again, trial work period months, you have 9 of them, okay? And when you have completed 9, you go into month 10. Okay, so again, our first number that we are concerned with when we are planning, when you are working, when you are in fact contributing into FICA, is 910. When you hit your 10th month, remember when I started the presentation and I mentioned the term substantial gainful activity? This is what Social Security is in fact looking at when you are employed. Because if they discover, based on your earnings, that you are in fact receiving SGA, there's a good possibility that you no longer meet the definition of being disabled by the Social Security definition. Okay, so when an individual continues to work, the process is, phase 1, I call it, is your trial work period months. Phase 2 begins on month 10. When an individual continues to work and grosses, again, for this year, 2020, the substantial gainful activity number for an individual who is not blind, 1,260. When during this phase is called extended period of eligibility, anytime you earn that gross amount, you are not entitled to your cash benefits. However, of course, there is another challenge awaiting us, okay? When somebody reaches the extended period of eligibility, you are given what I call 3 special months, and it is in Social Security regulations, and they call that your cessation month followed by your 2 months of grace period. Okay, and that's like a gift. Social Security is congratulating you on a job well done, so they're going to give you an additional 3 months where you are permitted to make as much money as you possibly can, and it doesn't affect benefits. Same holds true when you start your trial work period months. Again, one of the benefits is you can make as much money as you possibly can during the trial work period months, not have it affect your benefits. Because please remember, the trial work period months exist for that you can test your ability to return to work, and you can in fact make as much money as you possibly can during the trial work period months. And then you're given an additional 3 months following the 9 months. And that's where the challenge comes, because the extended period of eligibility, ladies and gentlemen, lasts for a period of 36 months. That's right, the process, a total of 3 years. So you can see how this can be challenging when you are in fact returning to work. And it's not as complicated as you may think, because at some point, earlier than later, as soon as possible, you're going to call and hopefully talk to somebody such as myself, a certified benefit counselor, that can help you plan and prepare for returning to work and talking more about these work incentives, okay? The third phase, again, notice the P's that I'm using in this presentation to hopefully help you remember the process. There's another P for you, okay? The third phase is in fact called expected reinstatement, and that period lasts for 5 years, 70 months. Okay, so if you continue to work and at some point during the extended period of eligibility, the Social Security Administration is tracking you through this period of time, and at some point your cash benefits are going to cease due to earnings. Okay, so if at some point, again, it's important to remember that to report these changes. So if you stop work, begin work, stop work, begin work, please let the Social Security Administration know, so that if need be, they can restart your check, okay? And during the extended period of eligibility, I have in my career seen that happen with relative ease. However, the challenge comes when, after 3 years, 9 months, if an individual comes into the third phase of expected reinstatement, it may be a little bit more challenging, but nonetheless, please remember to report those changes to Social Security. Okay, All right, I'm going to continue with the slide, and I'm going to give you enough time to think about. I know that's a lot of information coming at you and it's overwhelming, but please remember, contact certified benefit counselor and hopefully have a face-to-face meeting so that you can plan and have any questions that you may have. Ask him or her. And remember, it's about having your support team in place so that hopefully it's not going to be as confusion and you're not going to be working alone when you return to work. So first thing to remember, yes, a person on disability benefits, both SSI and SSD, can go to work, but it's through planning and preparation, okay? And it's about communicating to the Social Security Administration and any other support agencies that you may have in your life to inform them of the changes, okay? Okay, again, and much of the rest that I have in this presentation is in writing so that at your leisure, you can take your time, reflect, review. I've also taken the liberty of including the various links I've used in my career to gather information, because I do try to keep it up to date as much as possible to keep things current. And I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. Again, you haven't missed anything. Do not panic. I've also included SGA for blind individuals as well. Okay, all right. So let me take a look. Please be patient. Thank you so much for your patience. And let's see, we're moving along. Again, no one panic. You're all doing fine. All right. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm just double checking myself, okay? Again, please note that the SGA rules do not apply for recipients on SSI, need-based program again, okay? So please remember, keep things as simple as you possibly can until you get a complete grasp of what is in fact happening under the Social Security work incentives, okay? All right, let me keep looking. You're all doing fantastic. Again, thank you for your patience this afternoon. Again, all of it's in writing. That's what I'm looking at right now along with you. No one panic. Okay, there we go. All right. There's that EXR. Okay, so again, all right, work incentives, okay. And now I'm going to stop here briefly at a section that is part of that work incentive program. And we call this the IRWIs. It's another acronym, yes, and it can be confusing. And again, it's very challenging when we're addressing IRWIs and have so many acronyms to go along with the various programs involved with the Social Security Administration. But IRWIs does in fact stand for impairment-related work expenses, and it's an important tool that I have used from time to time in my career. And pretty much what that indicates is that when an individual reaches phase 2, again, phase 2, remember, you have your 9 trial work months. When you come upon phase 2, any IRWIs that we can apply to your substantial gainful activity for the month, it is in fact subtracted from that gross amount. And if possible, if it reduces the gross amount under SGA, you are entitled to your SSDI monthly cash benefits. So I'm just going to use an example just to keep it simple. So let's say that you pay for medication. The medication pertains to your disability, and without it, it would not allow you to go to work. And let's say that amount is $200, and if the gross income, as we know for SGA, is $1,260. So keeping it simple, if your gross income is $1,400 a month, and we subtract $200 from that gross amount, dropping you under $1,260 a month, again, you're entitled to your Social Security SSDI cash benefits, okay? So that's why it's important that you report all changes. And when somebody does in fact go to work, Social Security does in fact have a responsibility to you to send you information. It could be something as simple as receiving a notice that I simply call a receipt that you have reported your income to Social Security, and they're thanking you for reporting that income, and they're sending you a receipt. My experience with many individuals I've worked with in my career, you may also receive what's known as a work activity report. And what Social Security is doing there, at some point, they will send you this form, and it is your responsibility to fill it out as best you can, because Social Security is looking to update their information, your work history. So again, you, from time to time, when you go to work, you will receive these documents. There may be a possibility also you may receive a medical review. Okay, that does in fact happen as well. So remember, I'm going to go back to, yes, I'm going full circle, to the two ways an individual could lose their cash benefits. Remember, you either medically improve or you make too much money. Okay, very good. We're going forward. Subsidies, again, I gave a brief section. I don't spend much time in my career working on subsidies, but I do present that information to you. And if at some point it does become a question, or we find that there are subsidies that exist, we will direct you to the appropriate agencies for that, okay? Medicare extension, okay? That's very important. I do spend some time on that because that is something that, again, that will happen when somebody goes to work. No, you're not going to lose your Medicare automatically, not through the work component of it. But we need to address it when somebody does go to work, and I explain it with many people I work with. We talk about other health insurance that is available to you, particularly through your employer when you do go to work. Okay, but it is mindful to know that the Medicare does in fact have a time limit. Social Security determines that time limit, but following the trial work period months, it will last for a period of 93 months, and that equates into a little bit less than, if memory serves, 8 years, okay? So we do need to be mindful of that and plan. Again, that's where the planning comes in and working with your benefit counselor, okay? We also need to be mindful that premiums are involved, okay? So what I've discovered throughout my career is that if an individual is working and they get to their second phase, right, the extended period of eligibility, and they find that they continue to work and they're making above SGA, quite frequently during this time period, your Social Security check, your SSDI will stop. And if that does in fact happen, you will become responsible to pay that premium because you've gotten used to the premium being paid automatically through your disability check. Remember, if it stops, which is a good thing sometimes due to employment, which is the goal, you will be responsible to pay that premium. And if memory serves, I gave you the link for more information for that. Okay, and I give you another total of how many months that Medicare insurance is available to you. But notice on slide 21, a slide dedicated all to itself to remind you that you will be responsible to pay your Medicare premiums, okay? Particularly to the Part B component of your Medicare. All right, very good. All right, now we're going to go on a little bit here. And now the next part of the presentation is your SSI. And for the most part, I do not spend much time on your SSI component. When you call me to schedule an appointment or talk for a telephone conference, I'll dive more into the particulars of the SSI component. Simply put, if you don't need it, you don't receive it. And when I have somebody working, we do in fact discuss the effects of earned income. And I provided you with a couple of charts in the formula that Social Security uses when they calculate earned income and the effects on your SSI. Okay, so I'll talk more about that when and if I have the privilege of discussing your plan in the future. Okay, again, I believe I gave you a couple of examples. There it is again, okay? But remember, one of the benefits of going to work on SSI, remember, one of the objectives with many people that I'm working with who are in fact are in receipt of SSI as well as SSD, one of the objectives is to start paying into FICA. That's the big piggy bank, that insurance program that many, many people pay into when they go to work to plan for the retirement, for when we age. And that often determines how much we receive every month in our retirement. So remember that. That's one of our goals, working together, okay? I've also given, again, based on SSI recipients I've worked with in the past, earned income, unearned income, in-kind income, deemed income. These are all income sources that do in fact have effects on your SSI. Simply put, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't need it, you don't receive it. Okay, so hopefully I'll be hearing from some of you in the future so I can talk more specifically about you, your goals, and any questions you may have. Okay, okay. Student earned income exclusion. Okay, during my career, I have spent very little time working with the student earned income exclusion, but I do have a circle of benefit counselors I do work with periodically that do in fact work with student earned income exclusions. And if that should become something that we need to address with any of our audience today, we'll discuss that further too. But again, it's just about letting you know what's available to you. And then this again is an overview. Okay, now remember when I presented the presentation earlier on, one of the benefits and resources available to you is called the 1619B, and that pertains to only those individuals on SSI in the state of New York. And it does in fact protect your income. Forgive me, it protects your SSI when you are in fact working. So if you notice on the slide, you can make a considerable amount of money and still be in receipt of your SSI. So again, maybe you want to consider going to work part-time. As many people that I work with, I encourage part-time only until you test and see what does in fact happen to your SSI, but perhaps your food stamps, housing, so on and so forth. So that's something we discuss together. Again, part-time work, okay? Working both with your doctor to make sure that you are able to go to work. So again, going back to the doctor as well. So remember that, ladies and gentlemen, your doctor is part of your team as well. Okay, very good. Returning to work responsibilities. Kept it very simple. Keep it simple. It's a philosophy I've used quite often in my career, myself included, because there's a lot of information coming at us. Okay, so again, take a look at slide 28. But please, before you move forward, it is important to remember to plan, to prepare. Perseverance and patience. Those are the keys to anyone that I'm working with that want to return to work or begin to work. I want you to know that in fact you can go to work in receipt of SSI or SSDI, but it requires preparation and planning. Okay. The next slide we're looking at here on 29 is, and I've used it frequently in my career for those recipients on SSI that have returned to work or have began to work to report your income. You can in fact use the wage reporting system. It does work, it's efficient, and it's timely. So please take a look at slide 29 for those of you that are on SSI, okay? All right. Now I'm going to go into, again, I've used this. I absolutely love this program. It's called the Medicaid Buy-in Program for Working People with Disability. I quite often use it for individuals that are in fact in receipt of Medicare, because we know that Medicare covers 80%, and that leaves 20% for the individual to pay. And the Medicaid buy-in is no cost to the recipient. There is in fact a premium, but the state of New York pays that premium. Again, they're congratulating you on returning to work, but if approved, eligible, suitable for this program, Medicaid hopefully will cover the 20% gap. So again, we'll talk more about that if I have the privilege of talking with you and meeting you. Okay, very good. Medicaid buy-in for working people with disabilities. Okay. And I gave a little bit about the eligibility requirements. There they are on slide 31. Okay, all right. And again, I gave you the link for that. So if you want to check those numbers, the last time I looked, those were the accurate figures involved. And more helpful websites. All right, remember, you're not out there by yourself. There is supports. There are a circle of friends, family, myself, that can help you with this process and hopefully prepare you to answer any questions you may have if you're considering starting employment, whether part-time, full-time, returning to work. Again, simply remember 2 ways an individual loses their Social Security, SSD, or SSI benefits. Start there. But first, before you get started, know which program applies to you, and you can understand why I started with that subject before the PowerPoint began. Again, let me see what else is available. Ticket to Work program. We'll talk more about that when I see you, specifically the website, Choose Ticket to Work. Okay, very helpful information on there. It is the Social Security Administration program, and I myself am a component of that program. I am, in fact, sitting in an employment network, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, let me see what else I have available to you. What is an employment network? There you go. Okay, not to confuse the issue. A lot of information coming at you. But the main thing whenever I'm working with anybody, remember when you're working and moving forward, all programs that I'm talking about are completely voluntary. I want you to have fun with this process. No pressure. Do not add stress onto yourselves. Please be patient. Volunteering, that's the key. Resume writing is available to you. I'm going to keep going there, and I believe that's it. My apologies. That's the end of the presentation. My name again is Troy Snyder. I would like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend with me this afternoon. And if I can all help you with your plans, your goals, please feel free to call me. You have my contact information. Be well, and thank you.